Okay, I've already drawn out the bird and given it a coat of Payne's grey very loosely using some acrylic medium, and then I've let that dry. So once that imprimatura is completely dry, with a small brush now I can start putting in some of these relevant details and the basic shape so I don't lose the drawing. I can just about still see the drawing there. So it's going to be a very, very simplified painting with a simplified palette. So I'm not using black here, I'm using Payne's grey. And it's going to be an underpainting, but basically of Payne's grey and white. So that keeps it very simple. The only colours I'm going to use are titanium white, Payne's grey, raw umber and burnt sienna. But the main parts of the underpainting is just going to be Payne's grey and white. So now with my large 1 inch flat bristle brush, I'm going to put in the basic shapes. So these are going to be an old tree branch that it's landed on. So just very, very loosely and basically put in. And I'll start putting in the background colours as well. Now this brush is wonderful for all sorts of things. I use it in, I think, practically every painting. And I've got links in the description below if you want to purchase this particular brush and any of the other items or materials that I use. Then use the links below and you will be helping to support me and my channel, which will help me to keep bringing you these videos. So just using Payne's grey and white now, just to do this background. I want that light there to really shine and make the bird stand out against that. So as I come down, I'll be getting a little bit darker, but adding a little bit of raw umber into that colour as it comes down, further down towards the bottom. A little bit of raw umber just to create a variety of tone. Like that, getting really quite loose and abstract with it. I'm going to have these like trees, Impressionist style trees there in the background. Little spray of water, and while it's wet I'm going to scratch my name into the bottom right hand corner there, like I usually do. Okay, and with this silicone tool I'll start moving this paint around. Like that. It blurs it and makes it wonderful. If it's not going very well, then a little more spray of water and it will move the paint around a bit easier. Like that. It blurs the edges and creates wonderful abstract shapes. And I can paint with it as well. Pick paint up off the palette and actually apply it to the canvas. And it creates these wonderful abstract marks that you can't do with a paintbrush. Like that. And get really messy with those edges. The edges of the bird are now getting nice and messy, and I love starting a painting messy. And then you can refine it from there. Once that painting is a little bit dry or more dry, then you can start to refine it if you want to. But always start messy like this. It's great fun. And remember, painting should be fun. If it's not fun, then you shouldn't be doing it, probably. Take up golf or fishing or something else. But no, painting should be fun. And especially this style of painting, Impressionist abstract painting. It's so freeing to paint so loose, using big brushes and bold brushstrokes. Like that, just basically putting in the rough areas where I want the light to hit the bird. Now, you should know a little bit probably about anatomy of animals when you're painting things like this, so that you know the shape of an animal and how light will affect it and hit certain areas. So try and study a little bit of animal anatomy if you are serious about wanting to become an animal artist, a wildlife artist. But Impressionism You can get away with a lot of things with Impressionism. You don't necessarily need to know a lot about that. Because at the end of the day, I'm creating an impression of this bird. I'm not painting a detailed depiction of it, a photorealistic painting. I've been there and done that. I used to be a realist painter many years ago, decades ago. And this, to me, is so much more enjoyable. It's so freeing and cathartic in a way. It's good for the soul, put it that way. To be able to paint loose like this. And a lot of artists find it difficult to paint loose, especially if they're entrenched in painting detail and realism. I know many professional artists. I've got many friends who are professional artists, as I am, and they struggle to paint loose, but they are brilliant at doing detail. Whereas myself, I really can't see the point anymore in doing photorealistic paintings. It's a skill and it's an art, and I'm always in admiration of it, those people that do it. But for me now, I get so much more enjoyable experience out of one bold, loose brushstroke. Like there, I've just done the wings, the feathers of the wings. I haven't done them photographically, I've just given an impression. I'll do the same with these legs as well, and the feet. I'm not going to do them realistically. But you know this bird has feet, so I'll just give an impression of them. Like that. Because I know what birds' feet look like, I can simply paint them. But those feathers there, I'll be painting over those wing feathers, but it just gives that impression already. I've gone with this smaller brush now just to knock in a few little, well, it's not detail, it's areas of interest. And that's what I'm doing. Is overall, I'm creating areas of interest. And you do that by painting in layers. That's how you work with acrylics. You do a layer, you let it dry, and then you go over the top with another layer. And parts of those underlying layers will still show through. And if you do this 3 or 4 times, then you have great levels of interest within the painting, within those layers. So build it up, bit by bit, a little at a time. And that's how you work with acrylics. It also helps if you can paint quickly. As I've said in many other videos, learn to paint quickly. You'll find painting with acrylics so much easier. So what I'm doing now is I'm doing this underpainting just by going over it again and again until I'm happy, going again and again in different layers until I'm happy with the result. So that, for instance, this background isn't light enough yet. I really want that bird to stand out. So with a smaller brush, I'm just going to put in the lightness of that background, which will darken as it dries. So I may have to do that a few times before it stays bright. This is a common trait with acrylics, is they will dry slightly darker, the lighter colours will. It does happen with oils as well, but not so much. So you may have to just keep going over certain areas a few times before they stay the colours that you want them to stay. So I mean, this is a little cheap bristle brush. It was only about £1, I think. You don't need expensive brushes. In fact, I personally wouldn't use expensive brushes with acrylics because it will wear them out quite quickly. But I like worn brushes anyway. I like the randomness of brushstroke that they give. Just adding a little bit of raw umber into that branch now, and it automatically starts to look like it's colourful without doing much in the way of colour. Okay, the second coat on that background, I'm just going to start moving around again with this silicone tool. It's a catalyst tool, it's called. It's flexible and bendy, and you can paint with it and do all sorts of things with it. I'll just put these in with a brush, and then I'll use the catalyst tool again just to move that around. Like that. Okay, back to the brush. Now a little bit of burnt sienna into the branch, which is a warmer colour, suddenly brings the whole painting to life and gives the effect of colour throughout the painting, even though there isn't much. You don't need a lot of colour to make a painting, really. So you've seen that more or less the entire painting I did with Payne's grey and white, and just added a little bit of raw umber or burnt sienna here and there. That's all. So you really, colour is really of secondary importance at this stage when you're doing an underpainting. But as it is, this is a black bird, so it's a crow. It's a messy crow as well. So it does have little blues in it there and other tones that I could put in with the raw umber. But in general, you're not really bothered about colour when you're doing an underpainting in Payne's grey and white. So you can concentrate on getting the contrasts and the shapes and the composition correct. And then the colour is the final thought towards the end. You start adding little bits of colour, as I did with the burnt sienna there on the branch. So I'm just putting in some mid-tone greys here and there on that branch with this very worn brush, this nylon brush, which I like to splay the bristles of, and it produces some lovely effects like that, like a little fan brush really. Okay, I've gone to a very small brush now to put in some of these little highlights and make the accuracy around the eye and the beak more correct, because the only bit of detail and accuracy, total accuracy I want is around the face and head, the beak, the eyes and the head basically, perhaps a little bit on the feet. But the rest can be really quite abstract and loose, because if the head and the eye, I'll just put that little dot in there now, are correct, then the rest of the bird will look correct. If it's painted correctly with regards to proportion and composition. So I'll just put those feet back in again and let them blur into that back, into the edges of that by using my finger, just blur it a little bit into the branch. And then a few little stray feathers here and there, because I like my birds to look messy. Like that. It also breaks up the edges and the outlines and shouldn't be really hard edge. The only real hard edge there is the beak and perhaps the legs and the feet. So get it hard edged on that beak there, like that. And I'll just start to fiddle around now, getting things correct. How I want them, just make sure that line is dark enough there. And I'll just want to make sure the outline or the of the beak is correct there. So just adjusting it with a little bit of lightness from the background. And the same with the lower part of the beak there. And I can add a few little highlights and dots of light here and there with a light grey tone. And then with a smaller bristle brush, flat bristle brush, I can just lighten up some of these areas down here, because I want the bird to really stand out against that background. So I've just lightened it slightly, and I'll do the same below the tree branch there, like that. So the tree branch stands out as well. I'll put some mid-greys into the feet there just to give the impression of 3 dimensions. And then some highlights on the top, just little dots of light here and there, not everywhere. The same with the branch, little dots of light. I call these little firefly dots. I love doing these, especially at this stage of the painting. Okay, using this old worn brush I can splay the bristles with, I can do all this very fine feather-like work here just by bending the brush like that. It's an old worn one, so it doesn't matter. If you do this with a new brush, you will ruin it. Make sure you're using an old worn one. Okay, I'm just going to re-establish those lights once again in the background with this larger brush. Blend with my finger if necessary. And then do some darker blending here and there. And then refine that beak once again with a small brush. Make sure it's accurate, so it really stands out against that background. And then a few more little fine areas here and there, direction of the feathers there. I'll put some darks in as well just to blend them. And then a few more little light areas with this worn brush. Like that. Just really, I'm just refining it and going over areas now until I'm happy with it. So the last thing to do will be to put in some really fine dots of light with a small brush. So this is pure white now. I'm just going to put in a few of these little dots here and there. Not everywhere, just little firefly dots of light. And it brings the painting to life. And once I've done those, then that's the painting finished. If you have enjoyed this video and hopefully found it interesting and entertaining, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Be sure to click on the little bell icon if you wish to be notified of my latest videos. I am always interested in your questions and comments, and I do try to answer every one of them. Hopefully I will see you on my next painting video, so until then, have a lovely day and happy painting!